Going live. Okay, we are going live this morning. Good morning, everybody. This is the Senate Transportation Committee, and it is Thursday morning. And we've been talking about glass, ground glass, the recycling business for constructions, and I'm sorry, and other things. So we thought we'd have a little discussion this morning about the issue and continue our discussion, I should say. And use of glass in construction projects. And we have, I think, 3 or 4 folks with us this morning. We'll start off with Sarah Reeves, the Executive Director of Chittenden Solid Waste District. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. Thank you for asking me to talk about this. This is an interesting topic, to be sure. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Host is disabled screen sharing. So if someone could, says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
So she just turned it back on, I think so.
Great. There it is. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Okay, there we go. All right, go right ahead.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Let's see here. I should do a little bit. Okay. So thank you very much again. As I said, my name is Sarah Reeves. I'm the Executive Director for Chittenden Solid Waste District. And CSWD is the largest district in the state. We serve, just happens to be all of Chittenden County, but the MRF is a little bit different, the materials recycling facility, as I'll explain. So a little bit about CSWD. Again, we are a municipality. We were chartered by the state in 1987. The MRF was built in 1993, and it is one of 2 in the state, the other one being owned and operated by Casella down in Rutland. Our MRF in Williston processes about 48,000 tons of what we say blue bin recycling a year. So that's standard bottles, cans, cardboard, paper.
48,000 tons. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is. And the facility was designed to process 25,000 tons. So we are very much undersized, which is why we are looking to build a new MRF to be able to be more efficient and handle the material. And we don't, as I mentioned, just serve Chittenden County. We serve approximately 325,000 Vermonters. So we're really serving the central, north central, northwest portions of Vermont. So more than just our county. But of that 48,000 tons, about 14% of the material that comes into us is glass bottles and jars. What we don't receive is we don't receive or process any of the material that is run through the bottle bill system. So we don't see any of those containers at all. This is just what people put in their blue bins or their blue carts.
Well, that doesn't take care of Farrell Distributing and Baker Brothers, those folks.
No, correct. They all, most of them are contracting with TOMRA, and right. TOMRA has their own MRF, their own processing. They do their own thing. So we don't see any of those materials. And this is.
Can I ask?
Go ahead. So, right.
Don't you see those containers, because not everybody takes them to a redemption center? They just throw them in the blue. I mean, that's what I do.
Exactly. So if you are going to the redemption center or using a reverse vending machine, that material is completely separate. But if you choose to not and just want to put them in your blue bin, that is what comes to us and what goes to the MRF in Rutland as well. So yeah, so we'll see some materials, certainly bottles and cans that have the deposit on them, but just for any reason haven't been brought back.
And can you clarify, you're not allowed legally to separate those and go get the deposit for them. You have to just recycle them.
Well, that's an interesting question. It doesn't make sense for us to do that at the materials recovery facility itself. There's just too much material coming through. But at our drop-off centers, we used to have a container that was for redeemables, and we were allowed to bring them to a redemption center, and then we would receive the nickel back. It was seen as a donation from our customers, but generally we haven't had that barrel out in our drop-off centers since before the pandemic. So now people who want to bring us those and kind of leave them as a donation, basically it goes into this MRF system and then we don't recover the nickel. That stays in the unclaimed deposits bucket for the state. And now we just process them through the MRF.
Sarah, I got a question about what, I know you have to clean the jars before you put them out there, right? Rinse them or something, because my wife, when they're done, you can drink out of them. She cleans them so well. So does everyone do that, or they just don't do that, do they? Or is everyone pretty faithful about that?
Well, we're actually very lucky in Vermont. We have a very dedicated recycling population, and
Wow.
people do a really good job at keeping materials clean. And for containers, the guidance is empty. It must be empty has to be empty, rinsed whenever possible.
Okay.
And we don't ask people to put their containers in the dishwasher or
No.
to really scrub them out. Some things, if you can get the peanut butter out of the jars, that would be great. But as clean as you can. But we recognize that that's just simply not practical for a lot of people.
I'm just curious, because I'm thinking about how much material must be in those jars, and how do you separate it, or how do you? I don't know how it happens, but
yeah, and it's a great question, and the answer is we don't.
Okay.
So we do rely, excuse me, on recyclers, on our population to do that for us. And
Okay.
So and it is important.
Good. Do you have another question? Someone else had their hand up?
Yeah,
Yes,
I do.
Senator.
Simple one. I'm
Yep,
just
go
trying to figure it out. What if I don't get the answer to it? I will sit here and I'll wonder the whole time. What's MRF stand for?
Sorry, yes, Materials Recovery Facility.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Senator
have a
Kitchell.
question. Yeah, I'm not clear. We talked about if you have returnables and you get them, how you deal with them. If they are redeemed at a redemption center, where do they go? To a recycling entity outside the state of Vermont? They certainly aren't refilled like years ago. Of course, the old glass bottles were reused, but those days are gone. So are we just adding a step to redeem, and then what happens to those redeemed bottles and cans?
Yeah, so most of the redemption centers and the reverse vending machines, so if you go to Hannaford and you use their machine, they are all under contract, mostly with one vendor, and the name is Tomra. So Tomra goes around to all of the redemption centers, all of the reverse vending machines, collects those bottles and cans that have been brought there by consumers, and brings them back to their own materials recovery facility. So they have a facility, I believe it's in Essex, and they do the same thing that we do. So they sort out the plastic from the aluminum, from the glass, and then they sell those materials on the open commodities market, just like we do. We don't see any of that material into our facility, nor does Rutland. So it's a completely separate kind of dual system. We're both doing recycling, we're both managing those materials, we're both selling them on the commodities market. But I don't see any of their revenue, they don't see any of my revenue. Completely separate system.
What's interesting is that in the returnable business, about a month ago, I stopped taking them because there's nobody bringing them back to stores anymore. They're all putting them in the recycling, because the days of the kids picking up bottles and getting their 6 cents or whatever are over. People are just putting them in their recycling bins and forgetting the deposit. For example, the liquor agency that I have, I bet I don't give back $20 a month worth of liquor bottles, and they're 15-cent deposit. But people don't want to bring them back, and they just throw them into recycling. It's so convenient. They don't worry about the 15 cents anymore. So it got to the point where I was not getting any. So I stopped, and they can go to a recycling center if they wish. That's what everybody's doing, because nobody's picking up bottles anymore. Those days are gone. Yeah.
Senator, you bring up a really great point. And we saw also during the pandemic, well, it was still in the pandemic, but in the beginning days when things were kind of shutting down and closing down, it did become more convenient for people to just put the redeemables in their blue bins, their blue carts. And that did cause a lot of the smaller collection centers to reconsider whether or not they want to be open. So we have seen a reduction in those outlets. And that is a concern. So, it might be something that the state wants to take another look at in light of how things have changed during COVID. It's a really good point.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Senator Birchlick.
Yes, sir, did you send these slides to Jeannie, or are you?
I apologize.
I didn't see them on the
I did not send
website.
them ahead of. Yeah, I did not send them ahead of time, but I will definitely send them to her so that they can be posted. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So this slide is just, again, showing the universe of material that we do process. And you can see that glass or PGA processed glass aggregate is that small wedge. It's about 14%, as I mentioned, of what we process through our facility. And this is what it looks like. Excuse me. So it looks like sand because that's what we're bringing it back down to. So when we receive material into the recycling facility, it goes through a series of conveyors. It then goes through a series of glass breakers, crushers, and then we have a primary cleanup system and a secondary cleanup system. And we are seeking, and have been for the whole time, seeking to get our glass to this PGA sandbar type material. And you can stick your hand in that pile and it's just like, very, very close to glass at the beach. It is that kind of small, is that polished. You would never know that was glass. And this is the product that we're looking and working with UVM and working with VTrans and ANR on to make sure that we can consistently get this material to that PGA standard so that it can be used in any manner of projects, such as I think Nick Vandenberg had talked to you about last week. But this is what it looks like. So when people think, oh my goodness, what can it possibly be? Aggregate is rough and it's we're getting it down to sand.
So you could grab a handful, Sarah, and it wouldn't cut your hands all up then.
Exactly.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I thought it was
Yes.
much worse. Wow.
No.
And as far as ingestion of any kind, it's not going to do what glass will do. As far as we know crushed glass can be pretty dangerous. So this is basically sand. If you want to eat sand, fine. If you want to eat this, you can. It's not dangerous to your inside intestines or anything like that.
Well, and because it's really designed for use in construction and transportation projects. I mean, that's really where we want to get it to. It's used as sub-base. It's underneath layers. It's not ever, a kind of a like a decorative. You might see like decorative big chunks of polished glass used on landscaping project. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sub-base.
For the record, we're not recommending you eat this. Okay, go ahead.
Correct.
Well, more about roadside animals and stuff like that, and and causing harm to them because over time, a washout or leaches out or anything like that. So that's where I'm really concerned about. Yeah,
and I understand. Certainly, we want to make sure that's never ever the case, and because this would be, again, as sub-base, you're talking layers and layers and layers and layers, and it certainly compacts, and it's used as a drainage material. So, for example, if you were putting in a French drain and you wanted to use this as kind of some of that underlayment, you would have other things on top of that, right? So it doesn't want to move. Like once you put it in, it starts to compact, and that's like the beauty of this material is as a drainage medium. It's fantastic.
Senator Chittenden, you had a question?
So thank you, Sarah. You touched upon this very briefly, but I'm wondering if you could connect it. Can you tell me how much your current facility is able to create aggregate in this form, and how much you are looking at this new facility to possibly better the churn a result or resulting aggregate that can be used? And also, real quick, they do tours. Senator Mazza, if you want to check out a really great facility and see how this whole thing happens, I did it a month and a half ago. It was really quite impressive. It's out in Williston.
Yeah, I think I will this summer. I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for recommending the tours. We absolutely love to bring people through because seeing is really understanding. And this is a little bit of the outside of that building. And that's part of the problem, Senator Chittenden, is that our current facility, because it was so small, we had to kind of build out as much as we could. So the end part of the glass process is outside, and this is the issue. So with the new MRF, the goal is to bring all of the processing inside, undercover, indoors, and to add another piece of equipment to help keep the material dry year round. Because the issue that we have right now is that for half to a little bit more than half the year, the material, as it flows through the different screens, is wet or wet-ish. And we have a lot of shredded paper that flows through our facility. And that shredded paper, as particularly the crosscut shreds, is the fibers are so fine that they attach to the pieces of glass, and then as it goes over the screens, the paper basically mucks up the screen and it blocks it, so it doesn't screen as efficiently. In a new facility, this again, what you're seeing here that's outdoors. It'll all be indoors. We'll put a drying system on that, keep the material as it goes through dry, keep those screens working at the high efficiency, and be able to create this sand fraction, this PGA, all year round. So right now what you're seeing is again, we've got kind of the three pieces of the puzzle here is the pea gravel, or the harder, chunkier stuff, the sand fraction, which you can stick your hand in and it's sand, and then the trash. So the trash that comes off of this process is bottle caps, whether it's plastic bottle caps or like the plastic rings around some bottles, certainly the metal bottle caps, some of the labels, that gets filtered off as trash. But we're focusing on, like I said, as the sand fraction. You can see this is the majority of what is produced at our MRF. The pea gravel size during the winter months and the rainier months, that is what we ship to Massachusetts. And because we know we're not going to ever get it to PGA quality, so we don't go through that effort. We send that off, and that is what is very, very expensive. And here's getting at some of your questions to Senator Chittenden. So right now we're currently again generating about 25 tons a day going out. So in relation to what Nick said is needed in Sandboro in Vermont, which I think he said it was over 300,000 cubic yards, our equivalent is at most about 5,000 cubic yards a year. So we will be a very small component of what is needed on an annual basis in Vermont, but we would love to get to that place, because then we would know all of our material could be used locally as a one-to-one Sandboro replacement. And again, when I talked about some of the contaminants, shredded paper, plastics, some organics, we talked about peanut butter, and keeping that material dry is critical. And that's why one of the reasons we need a new MRF is to be able to help us facilitate.
Senator Perchlik, got a question?
Yeah, so the 4,000 to 5,000 cubic yards a year is for what you will be able to produce with the new MRF. Do you know what the statewide production of used glass is?
We're the only ones doing this. We are the only ones trying to produce a PGA at this time.
I meant like if everybody in the state that bought glass bottles recycled them, how much how much are we sending away to out of state, for example?
That is a great question, and because the majority of the redeemables is going through that TOMRA system, we don't know exactly how much glass is being sent out of state. It is all being sent out of state. Quite a lot of TOMRA's material, the glass in particular, is going to Quebec, to a facility there. But we don't know how much outside of the MRF system. And Casella is here today. They may be able to tell you how much is going down to the Carolinas, and that's where they ship their stuff, from what I understand. But as far as the bottles and going through that TOMRA system, we don't know, and that's a reporting lapse or a gap. Maybe A&R is able to get that information. We certainly don't have strong numbers for that. We have estimates, but we know that it's the majority, the vast majority is going out of state. Yeah, this is a very, very small amount of the total that is generated in Vermont. And again, for us, it's critical that we want to keep the finished material local. And this is the transportation committee, so the key for us is glass is very, very heavy to transport. And when we are making a PGA, we're able to truck it 6 miles from our facility to Colchester. When we can't, which is a good portion of the year, we're shipping it over 240 miles down to Massachusetts. There's another facility that just recently opened in Massachusetts. It's in the same town as Patriot Recycling, so it's the same amount of transportation.
So Whitcomb is using it for paving?
No, they're slowly blending it into some of their aggregate mixes, but the issue that they're having is that they're waiting on the new specifications from VTrans. And VTrans has the spec written as far as being able to be used on state roads and local roads, but they're waiting on ANR's decision determination on how much of the contamination is an allowable amount in PGA. And that's been the sticking point for moving this process forward. ANR is at the table, VTrans is at the table, and we're all very, very excited about the work that's being done at UVM on this. So I think that we will be able to get to a place where ANR will have the science behind them to be able to say, yes, we can move off of our pretty restrictive standard right now, which is less than 1% of this kind of contamination or deleterious material, and look at our neighboring states, which have higher acceptance levels. And so we're looking at that right now, and that's part of the crux of that UVM study that is going on.
Senator Pertlick, go ahead.
So that 1%, that's what ANR was saying, and that's basically trash that didn't get sorted out, little pieces of those bottle caps and labels and whatnot. Is that what you're saying?
It could be just the shredded paper, the organic fraction, and so where are you at now as a percentage? Yeah, it depends on the time of year, right? Okay. So that's why we need to truck. So when we're in this time of the year, we are over that 1%. We are never over 2 to 2.5%, regardless of the time of year. And neighboring states have allowable limits as high as 5%. I believe New York may be at 3, New Hampshire may be at 3. But there are, so there's definitely some room for conversation. Really what we're talking about is that organic fraction, whether it's, again, that shredded paper, which is the bulk of it. There could be some foodstuffs, but it's very, very small. And that's what UVM is looking at now is like, what's really there as far as the percentage, and how can you, what are the techniques that you can use to eliminate that, reduce that? One of the things that we may need to look at is, do we continue to accept shredded paper at our materials recovery facility? And, because that is the main contaminant for us. We can sort out the plastics because they don't shred down to that sand size, right? So we can filter that out. That shredded paper, that's hard.
And I don't want to have you speak for ANR, but what is their problem with some paper in the glass that's going to be buried under a roadway?
Well, that's a good question, and I certainly will not speak for ANR on that, but I think their concern is because for sub-base and for kind of any application transportation, right, as you know, it's critical that the underlayment does not fail, and you need it to perform as it has to according to certain engineering specifications. So it needs to be consistent all the time, and I think their concern is probably around that ensuring that consistency and making sure that the levels don't vary too much to affect how the engineering properties of PGA will perform. So that's why, you know, the UVM study is really important and really critical. We're testing the engineering properties of the PGA. We're not we, the Royal we. They're looking at, you know, what level of contamination will it affect the engineering properties. But that's what I understand is the main issue, is making sure that those properties are consistent.
Senator Ingalls, you had a question?
Yeah, so as I envision recycling, I see it's that product is continually used over and over and over so that we use less natural resources to produce product. Is that not happening? Are we just looking for other places to bury this stuff other than in landfills?
Well, this is a product. This is another product. And, you know, it is a replacement for another virgin material, right? Sand out of quarries. So I think that what you bring up is a very good question, because there is a perception that certain products can only be turned back into what they used to be. And that has never really been true throughout the recycling industry for decades. We're always looking at innovative ways to reuse or repurpose or to remanufacture recycled materials. So if that's the case for plastics, you know, plastic bottle doesn't always become a plastic bottle. It very rarely becomes another plastic bottle. It goes into carpeting and strapping and clothing. Similarly for glass, which has been a problematic material for 30, 40 years, it's been critical that we find other uses aside from bottles and jars. You know, so, you know, and we see that, right, when we go down condiment aisle in Hannaford, right? You see how many products that used to be in glass jars are now in plastic containers. The universe of use for same use glass, bottle to bottle, is very low. It is higher through the redemption system, right? So that is the best bet, really, for glass bottles to be turned back into glass bottles. It has never really been the case through materials recovery facilities that the glass there would be returned back into bottles. Sometimes it can be, but most of it goes to these other uses, whether it's as sub-base, PGA, as abrasives. Some can go to the fiber optics industry. There's a host of other uses, and I think that's good. I think you want to diversify, right, and get as many products out of it as you can.
Okay. Any further questions? Senator Chittenden.
Can you tell me if you have a general idea of how much of this aggregate is being traveled in trucks on our roads versus putting on rail down to either North Carolina or Massachusetts? So what percentage roughly is rail versus roadways use?
Yeah, for CSWD, it's 100% truck. And I think I saw Kim Crosby on from Casella. I believe most, if not all, of theirs is rail, but I won't speak for Casella. But for us, it's 100% via truck.
Wow, that's a lot of heavy truckload.
It is, and it's, you know, we put about 25 to 30 tons on each truckload. We want to, you know, and that's about as much as we can do, but that is very, very heavy. And we're sending, again, when we ship to Patriot, it's several trucks a week. It's a lot of wear and tear on the roads. Just a quick, you know, review of kind of what it costs on an average year. This is as budgeted. So it's pretty expensive. You know, if all goes according to plan for fiscal 22, we may net a little over $50,000, but that does not include staff time, overhead, or capital. So glass has always been a loss leader and not a high revenue generator for CSWD ever. It's always been an expense. So again, to reiterate some of the local uses that we would like to see, this is some of the things that we want to try to get the PGA into use as, and a potential new use that is not related to VTrans, but is as foam insulation. And there's a company that has been trying to get up and running in Vermont for a while, Laval, and they can use some of this recycled glass in their product. They're better off using bottle bill glass. It's just a straighter line for them, and it's less cleaning they have to do to get some of that fiber off. But it could also be another potential use for this material. And again, I really want to thank UVM, VTrans, A&R for being so engaged and so active in the study that we're working on. VTrans, as I said, has their spec ready. We're waiting for A&R to sign off on what they are comfortable with that level. And we're hopeful that the study will conclude within about 18 months. And at that point, which would be great timing if our board does approve our new MRF project to go forward, we hope to be up and running in about 24 to 26 months. So the timing would be perfect if things could work out that way.
Good. Very good. Very good. Yep.
And one last slide, Senator Chittenden had asked about or mentioned Consolidated Collection, and I won't touch too much on this, but Consolidated Collection is essentially where a community will, instead of having multiple haulers each day, people subscribe individually for their services, the municipality will contract and develop routes, so zones, if you will, within the community. Burlington and South Burlington are currently looking at this process. There are about 14 cities and towns in Vermont that currently have this, and it generally leads to lower costs for consumers. It always takes trucks off the road. It generally makes you have, if your trash day is Monday, then it's Monday.
Guess we lost you.
Frozen for me.
Thought it was me for a minute, so I'm glad it's not.
Guess
You're
we're all.
muted, Senator Kitchell. Senator Kitchell, you're muted.
Look, I fell on my way over this morning, so I'm not, and I
Pay for your entire
managed to
neighborhood.
really fall on my hand. So I look like I've been in a boxing match, but
Wow.
Yeah, that looks bad.
I guess
yeah,
so.
I know it's,
That's
so I have
not
this
good.
I have this big bump here.
Yikes.
Uh-huh.
Well, can we move on to Joe Sinagra?
I need some of that glass that functions as sand in my driveway, I guess.
Yeah.
We all need it.
Yes, I'm here, Senator.
Okay, good morning. Haven't seen you in a few years. How you doing?
Well, a little grayer than I guess the last time I saw you.
Well, we're all... Okay, what have you got to add for us this morning? I see, I know you represent Myers Containers. They do a lot of recycling.
We do. I mean, I don't have a lot to add on the glass side of things. We operate Vermont's only certified C&D center in the state. We have now for about 6 years. So we mainly operate on the construction, the C&D side of things. On our residential routes and our commercial routes, we are picking up recycling, obviously, and most of that is going to, or all of it's going to the MRF, either in with CSWD. So we don't see a lot of glass at our facility here in Colchester.
You do a lot of roofing and lumber and all that other stuff, right?
Correct. Since we operate the only C&D center, and Vermont, as you know, outlawed the 5 big C&D items from the landfill, and it's now law that it has to be recycled. We're doing that recycling at our facility in Colchester: shingles, wood, concrete, metal, and cardboard.
Okay, I know you had to set up a nice operation there years ago. So is it doing well? Things are doing well there? Yeah.
It is. We've expanded over the years. We're processing a fair amount of product. A few years ago, we paved our first road in Burlington with shingles, and we are doing a lot of Class D roads with shingles now. A lot of golf courses are using our shingles for their cart paths and stuff like that. It's a win-win all the way around. We're keeping that product. By law, we have to keep it out of the landfill, but we're keeping it right here in Vermont. And as the senator was discussing earlier, a huge expense for waste is trucking. All trash ultimately ends up in Coventry, but 40 to 50% of all the trash in the state is produced in Chittenden County. and it's being trucked to Coventry or out of state, which is just not good for our roads, especially anyone who's driven through Johnson or Hardwick can certainly see the trucks and the damage it's doing to roads.
Boy, that Coventry is going to run out someday, and I wonder what's going to happen, because you hear a lot of talk about it. I've never been there, but I understand it's a huge, huge facility. Something to see. Yeah.
It is.
It is.
It is. They do a nice job. I will say that they are. They get a little bad rap at times, but they've been very responsive to the community.
Well, that's good. Good. Yeah. Okay. Any questions for Joe? Yep. Yes. Go right ahead, Senator Ingalls.
So like the last question is I'm learning about recycling, and I've had plenty of people asked that they would like to help me with it. Where does your product go? I mean, I just always thought that it went back into the same type of material. You shared with us where you're putting the shingles and all of that stuff, but other than the landfill, is it just going right back into the land someplace else in a different area, or what's being recycled?
Yeah, so from a construction debris side, an exciting thing is sheetrock, for example. Sheetrock's being turned into quickie dry or other fertilizer, which is exciting. The paper from sheetrock's turning into bedding for animals. Concrete is chipped down and turned back into base. Wood is chipped and turned back into press board. And I talked about shingles. As far as the commodities, things like paper and plastic, those are going to the MRF and going from there.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Senator, if I could just
Sure.
touch on one thing that
Yep.
CSWD, I know she talked and it got cut off on consolidated communication, consolidated collection, excuse me, and it's probably a topic for another time. But we disagree with CSWD's assumption on consolidated collection and the impact it would have. We and most haulers have argued that it wouldn't increase efficiencies and it wouldn't decrease the cost, and we believe it would actually hurt the industry as a whole.
Okay. Anything else? Questions? Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senators.
Okay. Is Kim with us this morning?
I'm still here.
Okay. Would you like to add something to this conversation from Casella Waste? Good morning.
Sure. And thank you to Sarah for going first. I think she covered most of the hard part, but I'll just go cover what we're doing down in Rutland. I just wanted to say that we're definitely supportive of the efforts that are being put forth by VTrans and DEC and CSWD towards their commitment for the use of recycled glass in construction projects. Sarah's right, glass is heavy and it's very costly to transport, and we are in need of local markets for glass. So just a little background about what happened with our facility in Rutland. Prior to 2018, we were sending recycled glass by tractor trailer to a facility in Massachusetts, and that facility was turning the glass back into bottles. However, that facility closed due to the lack of demand for glass bottles, since a lot of manufacturers were starting to put their products in cans, especially with the explosion of the craft beer industry. The closure of that facility left many recycling facilities in the Northeast without an end market for their glass. Fortunately, the Rutland MRF is located next to a rail system. So we installed equipment that we needed to load the glass into rail cars, and some additional cleanup equipment we installed. And that material is going to another bottle facility that's located in North Carolina. So unlike the recycling facility in Williston, we do not currently have the equipment installed to turn glass into PGA. In order to make PGA, we would have to make a significant investment. And I think Sarah could agree that it's expensive. We've got a couple of quotes, and I think all in it's about a little over $1.5 million to put this equipment in. And this is why we've been kind of following the conversations and discussions, and I've attended some meetings with VTrans to kind of follow this initiative that they've been working on with UVM and CSWD to solidify the use of PGA in construction projects. VTrans has stated that they could use all of the recycled glass that both recycling facilities are processing, mainly as a sub-base on road construction projects. We're aware that Vermont is or will be experiencing a sand shortage as regional sand borrow sources are diminishing and the sand that is available is increasing in price. I think in addition to the 1% deleterious issue, I think there's also some resolution that needs to be determined with the reliable test method. I think that's another component that UVM is working on, is coming up with a test method that will be able to demonstrate that the PGA is consistently meeting the specifications. And I think another important component that needs to be kind of solidified is how are we going to incentivize contractors to use this product once it's made? I think we all can agree that we don't want to make this product and then there's no commitment that the contractors are going to use it. We also have concerns that if we do make this investment into installing the equipment to make PGA, that additional legislation such as H175, which is proposing to expand the current bottle bill, and that bottle bill would essentially remove a portion of the glass that we receive in the recycling system, and then we would potentially have less glass to process into PGA. So in summary, Vermont needs local markets for glass. Local markets would help reduce Vermont's carbon footprint, greenhouse gas emissions by eliminating some of the need to import sand and reduce the need to send as much glass to out-of-state markets.
Good summary. Any questions this morning? Any questions from the committee members or anyone else in the? Well, we've covered it very well. I appreciate that. I know Casella is very involved in the recycling business in Vermont. And so it's something we're all working for. And I'm glad that Agency of Transportation is very interested, you say, working together so we can have a future. But I do know that a lot of things are coming in plastic, and there's an extension of the bottle bill, I think, would hurt the recycling business. And that's the last thing we want to do. We got to make it profitable for recycling if we're going to continue that down that road. And I think people, the general public, likes recycling. I think they want to get involved more and more. Like I said, they don't bring them back to the stores anymore. Those days are gone. They want to recycle.
Right. Well, we have one of the most comprehensive recycling laws in the country, the Universal Recycling Law, and that's really driven success in as far as recycling goes.
Well, good. Okay. Well, thank you. And for everyone, and Sarah, thank you for your good presentation. And thank you, Joe and Kim. It all worked out very well this morning. If we need you back in the future, we'll have you back. But unless I hear any questions at this point, I think we're all set. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Jeannie, we're going to move on to our next topic this morning is Vermont or railroad in Vermont. And
Senator Mazza,
yes, ma'am.
there's someone who's been in the waiting room that's entered under a phone number. I've chatted with them, asked them to identify themselves by name, and I haven't heard back from them. So I'm hoping they can hear me now. All of the witnesses who are scheduled for this next segment are in the meeting, so I really don't know who that person in the waiting room is.
Okay, well, we'll just move on. We'll start with the rail division, and we'll start with them. So this morning, we are going to talk rail. We have, as most of you all know, we're very supportive of rail in Vermont, whether it's passenger or freight. We have some good rail connections. We have New England Central or Genesee, Wyoming, and Vermont Rail. They've both done very well over the years. We try to work closely with them because we know it's an important part of moving freight and passengers, and we're very excited about passenger rail, as you all know, starting in Burlington soon. And we hope that we get the Vermont or the train to Canada passenger rail also. But freight is an important subject. We've talked about this for years. Anytime we can get a rail car on with the product. We replace a lot of heavy trucks, and that's what we're looking forward to. If we can get more people, more industry on rail. So with that little brief overview, we have Charlie Hunter with us this morning, and he's been around the rail for many years. He's with the Genesee Wyoming Rail. And so let's start off with Charles.
Morning,
right.
Senator.
Morning.
Morning to the committee. Appreciate you inviting me back. New England Central had a very good year safety-wise in 2021. We had 0 FRA injuries and 0 FRA reportable derailment. So on a railroad
Great.
the size of
Good
the
news.
NEC,
Yeah, that's good.
that's
news.
pretty darn good.
Yeah.
We restarted Amtrak service last year, and as luck would have it, we had a huge washout a little bit north of Brattleboro 3 days before the service was to resume. VTrans was very supportive of us getting permitting and a temporary road built down into the site to fill that huge hole, and we were able to get it done and run Amtrak on their back in service day as scheduled. So that was a good accomplishment by our team as well. The big rock that's up in Barrie, the waste rock, so to speak, over the years that we've marketed with Vermont Railway, that continues to move. We had a couple of customers last year take that rock. We've got a new facility down in New London, Connecticut on the ocean. It's called Mohawk Northeast. They're going to actually enlarge that facility down there, and they transload the rock from gondolas onto barges. The 2 projects we did last year went up into Maine, and then another one went over to Cape Cod. So that's a great thing for both Vermont Railway and New England Central to move that waste rock out of Barrie. Up in St. Albans, we've reached an agreement with the city for them to build us a new dispatch center building. It's only about 3 blocks north of the existing 1865 structure, which will ultimately be sold, but we're glad to keep those jobs. There's between 55 and 60 jobs between dispatching and crew calling and a few other support jobs. So that's a good story up in St. Albans.
Charles, would you just explain to some of the folks that don't realize what a facility that is? Or I'm surprised that they're moving is great, but how much work is, because I know it used to be just small staff. Now it's up to, what do they control? They dispatch all over the country, or how does that work?
Yes, sir. They dispatch St. Lawrence Atlantic over in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, all the way out to the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, California, all points in between. I mean, I believe GNW is in 43 states now. Wow. And so they dispatch trains across the whole system.
They do it all from St. Albans.
All from St. Albans.
I remember visiting that site many years ago. There was only 3 or 4 folks, but now it's grown to what, 50 people, you're saying?
Yeah, there's between 50 and 60 people involved in that now.
It's amazing. Just to see it is something to see, to dispatch trains all over the country out of a facility in Vermont, which is it's just something to see, because you think every area would have their own dispatching center, but here it's done out of Vermont for nationwide. So.
Yeah, modern technology. I mean, you're able to talk on the radio. It goes via either internet or other communication means and pops up on the other end, and you're able to talk to trains via radio from St. Albans to San Diego.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, thank you. Okay, go right ahead. Sorry.
Sure. Another exciting thing, and Senator Mazza, you're aware of this because we've met about it, is GNW has been selected by CSX and Norfolk Southern to be the operator of Pan Am Southern. CSX is in the process of buying Pan Am Railway, which operates on the NECR up to White River Junction. And as part of this transaction, they've selected GNW to form a new subsidiary and operate Pan Am Southern. So that track actually starts around Mechanicville, New York, which is in the Albany area, goes over to around Air, Mass, down into southern Connecticut, and then on our line up to White River Junction. So it makes a big cross, so to speak, in New England. That's currently before the Surface Transportation Board for final approvals. We had some public hearings a couple of weeks ago, which I think went very well. We've reached agreement with both Vermont Railway and VTrans on that transaction, which took a little time, but we're glad we got there. So if all goes well, the STB will issue a decision sometime in April of this year for us to operate that line as well.
Pretty good.
On the project side, we're finally into construction down in Massachusetts with our US DOT build grant. It's a $30 million project for rail and mainly new welded rail and bridges. And that'll get us up to 286,000 pound capacity on the south end of the NECR. And we're still moving along slowly with the FRA on our Chrissy grant with VTrans to address the rock slides and culvert issues in Vermont. I sure hope that goes to construction this year. It's always hurry up and wait when you're dealing with the federal government on these projects, but we're going to get there on that one as well. So 2 big projects on the NECR underway for us. And that's about all I have. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Charles this morning? They play a big role going through Vermont. I know we lowered the tunnel there a few years ago, didn't we, down in, where was it? We had to
Bellows Falls.
Bellows Falls, yeah. We had to lower the tunnel because we wanted double stack cars or to get through there. We're doing that. So
We did run some auto racks through there last year as well.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Charles, and we'll move on to Vermont Rail, and we have a couple of folks, Mary Ann Michaels, we know her well, and Sheldon Houghton. Who would like to speak, please?
Yeah, good morning, Senator Mazza and committee
Morning.
members. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can do you fine. Yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about Vermont Rail. They've been around for a long time, and they take a lot of trucks off our roads. And,
Absolutely, yes. Going on 50 plus years now, and
yeah,
the majority of our traffic originates or terminates in Vermont. Employ 150 employees to cover the 350 some odd miles of operations in the state, and touching parts of New Hampshire and upstate New York as well.
wow, that's good. Yeah, a lot of. I had the opportunity to go down to the ribbon cutting on the Middlebury Tunnel. Wow, what a job that is for the rail. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Just yeah. So tell us something about the Vermont Rail projects and what they moved and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a PowerPoint I was going to go
Sure.
through if you'd
Great.
like, and I probably can highlight on some of those topics as we go
Good.
through, and touch on some of the things I think have already been discussed regarding Amtrak. Also, some of the freight moves, and I think some stuff Mr. Hunter addressed as well. So I'll put my PowerPoint up here. And
Just for the record, Dave Wilson, who owns Vermont Rail, has a boat, so he likes boating instead of rail. So he has a boat across the street from me in the summertime.
Senator Mazza, may I just
Yes.
make one comment? This is Mary
Yeah,
Ann
go
Mike
right ahead.
from our
Yes.
rail system.
Good morning, Mary Ann. Morning.
Good morning, all. I think it would be wonderful, Sheldon, if you could give a little history about yourself. He never likes to talk about himself. He only talks about the railroad. But he
Okay.
is our president and he was appointed the president of Vermont Rail System in March of 2020.
Oh,
So-
okay.
He's been a little bit on the busy side dealing with COVID and all the issues
Oh.
and keeping the railroad operating and keeping us all safe. So Sheldon, a little history, please, before you.
Well, Mary Ann, I'm going to give you a little history, and that is I went to school with his father,
Well,
who's
there
a
you go.
graduate of Danville High School.
Really?
And he's named for his grandfather, who was at the Caledonia National Bank. And we used to watch Sheldon, the grandfather, used to walk home, which the house was beyond the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, or what was the St. J and LC, every day for lunch. So he wore a path right through Danville Green, making his daily 3 trips to and from home. So I thought I would give a little, even more background in terms of
Wow.
your president.
Yes.
Wow.
So I'll Senator Kitchell, when I need some info, I'm gonna call you.
Yeah, that's right.
What you discover in Vermont is it's a very, very small world.
Well, we also know that anything that happens has to go through Mary Ann. She's been there quite a few years. Well, we'll get to her in a minute. Okay. Okay, back to Sheldon.
Okay, can you folks hear me all right? The
Yeah,
computer-
yeah.
Can
So
you
that's
hear
what we
me
want to hear a
okay?
little something about you. Yes, that's fine. I think I can hear all right. Everybody else?
Okay, just wanted to make sure the computer audio cut out on me.
Any complaints?
He's also our IT guy.
Yeah, I can hear an echo, Selden.
Sounds fine here.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Now we can.
Problem might be, I see that we have them both on the internet and on the phone. I expect that's why there's a problem.
He
Right
told
now,
him we
so-
can't hear.
Hey, can you hear me all right now?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
No.
No, we lost you.
Well, he's muted. He's muted on his on.
You're muted.
There.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't look like the PowerPoint's gonna behave okay. Cuts my computer audio out.
Sheldon, if you want to send it to me, I can run it.
Okay, I'll send it over to you, Dan.
When will we not have these meetings? On Zoom? Right?
Way of life.
Well, I have to tell you, it cuts an hour and a half of commuting off my day.
Yeah, we like that. You work from home, Mary Ann?
I do some at home and I go into the office depending on what needs to be done. But, you know, I would say 90% of our employees have gone to work every single day during all of this because it's really difficult to operate a locomotive from home.
Right, yeah. or repair tracks. That's
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
Is Dave snow machining this winter?
He's on his way as we speak.
Oh, yeah, he loves snow machining. Wow.
Yeah, and that's why we have Selden, so.
Okay.
And Selden worked up the ranks and he's not gonna talk. So he's been with the railroad for, I don't know, maybe 22, 23 years, Selden.
Wow.
So, yeah. So he started out as our IT person.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, wow.
Yep. And he also worked on passenger trains and he has been out on the trains. He's worked in, working on maintenance of way. He's still as an engineer whenever we need one. We put Selden to work outside and he helps us out. So it's been wonderful to have Selden be our next generation for the president. We're really fortunate to have him.
Well, he knows the business, I guess.
Absolutely. So.
Okay, are we all set, Sheldon, or not yet?
I think, Dan, I just sent over the PowerPoint to you. I'm gonna leave by phone. Can you folks hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Mhm.
So it came through as a PDF, not as a PowerPoint.
You still share your screen as the PDF.
Yeah, I can do that. So Jeannie, do I have permission to share?
Oh, is this Dan asking?
Yes, Dan, yeah.
Yeah. You do now.
Okay.
Okay, can you folks, I'm having audio problems here, hearing you folks.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
hang on a second. Hang on, almost there. All right.
Yep.
Is there a way to make this into a slideshow, Selden, or just show it the way I got it? Not familiar on PDF. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So Selden, I'll just go to the next page whenever. I don't know how to make it into a slideshow, but
If you go, Dan, if you put it up to 100% and get rid of that little sidebar, it'd just be a little bigger.
okay. See if I can try that. Oh,
Yeah. Close enough.
is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, Selden, whenever you're ready, I can.
I think Sheldon's continuing to have audio problems. You might also have to give the presentation, Dan.
I can try.
Oh, all right, I'll help out until Selden, I think he's gonna get back on the phone. So Vermont Rail System, next slide, everybody can see this. So one of the things, of course, everybody is very happy to know about is Amtrak is coming to Burlington, which means that I get to retire. No, seriously, we've been working very closely with this, with VTrans, with Dan and his shop, with Amtrak, in order to get Amtrak into Burlington, and it's really going to happen this year in 2022. So,
Marianne, where's the photograph, that station? Can you tell us the location? I can't read the sign.
I need Selden for that.
It's a beautiful building. Is it the one we moved?
Not Chester? I think that's Chester.
Yep, that's Chester Depot down in Chester.
Perfect. Thank you, Nikki.
Followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
So, one of the other things that Selden had on his list here was the switch monitors, which I really need Selden to explain that. So are you good, Selden?
Enter the meeting password followed by pound.
Oh, he's still working.
So this, I can maybe kick in a little bit, and then if Selden gets on, so VRS, and of course Selden himself, being the IT wizard that he is, has come up with this switch indicator technology, which essentially what it does is if a train is approaching a switch that's on the tracks, there'll be almost like a traffic light, it'll be just like what you see on the road, a traffic light that shows that if it's green, you're okay, the switch is in the right place, and that train can roll through that switch, because it's lined correctly. But if it's not, if it's either open or open to the siding or partially open, somewhere in between, open and closed, it'll show a different color. And this is really important because as we add Amtrak to both the New England Central and the VRS line coming up into Burlington, one of the things that Amtrak and FRA have told VTrans is we've got to come up with a way to make this safer because Amtrak trains run faster. Well, Selden, scratched his head and figured out this new switch point indicator system, which is great. So FRA has seen it, Amtrak's seen it, all the appropriate safety people have seen it, and the switch point indicators are being installed between Rutland and Burlington now. There's a trial program on the New England Central, which I'm hearing is going well. And we're going to try to advance the switch point indicators over on New England Central soon, I think, Charles, but I don't know that we've got the green light on that, but I'm just hearing what we have going on the temporary trial is going well. So anyway, that's
can this technology be copyrighted?
Yeah, can we?
Well,
I mean, patented?
Hey,
It seems
that's
like
what I was thinking. Somebody can make some money on this.
well, Selden's the inventor here, so I know that they're all over that, and it's something that I'm sure Selden's very proud of because it's great technology, and I've seen it in action, and it works great. You can actually see it on your, like the engineer that's in the train can actually see it on their phone, a couple miles ahead or whatever, saying, all right, I see where that switch is. I know where it is. I'm good. I don't have to slow down. I can keep going. So it's a great safety technology, and VRS has done a great job with that. So that's what switch point indicators are.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Dan, for that backup. Yes, it's pretty impressive, very impressive. Next thing on the list was just the sale of Pan Am Railways. And as all of you have heard, Selden, our guy, worked with Dan and VTrans. At first we were a little concerned about the issues with the sale, and we worked for about a year to come to agreement, and now we're all in a good place where we feel it's a positive win-win for all. And Selden is back on. Hello, Selden.
Hello. Sorry, folks. I think I got the computer completely out of the picture here. Problems with the computer audio. Can you hear me okay?
Sure. Very good.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So, Mary Ann, I think you were just discussing, just if you can fill me in where you were at, and I'll continue on.
Sure. We were just discussing Pan Am Railways.
Okay. So I think Charles had started to address that. That whole topic came up in January of last year. And, we worked very closely with our connecting partners at both the CSX, Norfolk Southern, and G&W to address some of the topics related to that, how Pan Am operated by the Genesee and Wyoming was going to work with us at both Hoosick Junction and Bellows Falls, two of the key interchanges. And as Charles mentioned, we had some really productive discussions over the last year. This is a very complex topic. We have multiple interchanges with Pan Am Southern, depending if traffic's going from the southern part of New England or coming from the west. So we worked closely with them, and we were able to get those items all addressed and get a really good agreement put in place here for year's end that was submitted to the STB. And as Charles mentioned, we're expecting a decision on that in early April, and we're looking forward to working with the folks at G&W when they operate the Pan Am Southern. So I think some really good things there.
Next one is 286. Next one's 286 on Green Mountain.
Yes, Dan, do you have that slide up?
I have your key discussion topic. Oh, is there a specific slide for that?
Yeah, if you'd just like to cycle through those.
Oh, okay. I haven't kept up there. All right.
Okay.
I was still on page 1. So that's
all right. So Dan, you've got the Amtrak ones up right now, and I think the Pan Am ones are after that. But does anybody have any questions on the Pan Am topic? And if not, I'll kind of touch base on some of the Amtrak items and work through this.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. So I think Amtrak, of course, is one of the big projects that we're working on this year. A lot of work was done in 2021. I think, Dan, you probably discussed some of that. This year, one of the last major projects is going right now, and VRS is doing that work, which is adding the layover capacity for Amtrak and Burlington Yard. We started construction on that track in January, and despite the cold weather, our folks have been doing a great job getting some of the old infrastructure out of there and laying the sub base for the new track that Amtrak will lay over on. So that work's going on right now. In addition to that, there'll be a lot of electrical work done to be able to plug the train in. We're anticipating that work getting completed in mid-May. So that's really great to see. And of course, some other projects that started in the fall, the finishing touches will be put on those as well. Another key project that's happening is in order to bring Amtrak to Burlington, positive train control, which is being implemented on many Amtrak routes and many freight lines that have a high density of traffic, are putting that technology in place. For us up here in Vermont, it was probably overkill. So we worked closely with Amtrak and the FRA to get an exemption for the PTC. And for folks who aren't familiar with that, that's basically the anti-collision, making sure you don't have two trains within close proximity of each other. It looks at your switches, making sure they're lined for the mainline tracks, not the sidings. So we had to work very closely and put a whole plan together on how we were going to mitigate those risks. And the FRA accepted that plan in the fall of 2021. And one of the key parts to that is having to put switch monitors in over the entire railroad. So these are devices we developed at VRS, all built here in Vermont. We'll be putting 67 of them in between Rutland and Burlington. And that allows our dispatcher in Rutland to see the positions of these mainline switches that would otherwise require alone $250,000 per switch. And we're doing it for a fraction of that cost, all 67 of them. So major safety improvement and a cost-effective way to help get Amtrak to Burlington. So those are two of the key things going on at the moment. Are there any questions on those topics?
Questions, anyone? No? Okay, go ahead.
All right. And so the other big thing that started in the fall is Amtrak started their qualification runs. We did 6 trips in October to get some of their trainers qualified to start training their engineers and conductors. Those runs are going to start again actually this Sunday, and they'll probably be continuing on the weekends up to when the service starts. And that gets their engineers and their conductors all qualified on the tracks from Rutland to Burlington. So it's really exciting to see things coming together. You can see the picture here of the qualification train at the restored station in Virgin. So really coming right along.
Wow, nice, nice.
So any questions on the Amtrak topic at the moment?
No, everything is pretty well set to go this year then. Nothing is stopping it, I guess. Dan told us the other day. I think that's, I guess we're on track, so to speak. Is that later on this year?
Yeah, we're shooting for July. So
yeah, okay, that's good. That's good.
Getting very real. So it's really great to see all the efforts.
Yes, a lot of effort's gone into this over the years. Yep, yep.
Yeah. So all right. So moving on, I think we discussed the Pan Am topic. I don't know if there's any other questions on that. What we have here is just some slides. I don't think we've had a chance to talk since the start of 2020. And one of the big things that happened in 2020 is Pan Am had a problem with the Hoosick Tunnel in Massachusetts, and both the Green Mountain Railroad and the southern end of the Vermont Railway were key for 2 months to bringing traffic coming out of Maine and out of the Boston area to the west, to the Albany, to get reconnected with the Norfolk Southern and or CSX network. So we were running 100+ car trains multiple times a day between Hoosick Junction, Rutland, and Bellows Falls, in addition to some auto rack trains. I know the Bellows Falls Tunnel was brought up. None of that would have happened. There were some modified double stacks that went through, auto rack traffic. This lasted 2 months. So that route was very key. And, one of the things we'll talk about later on here is the importance of 286 and where that came into play. So are there any questions? I know you folks were discussing the Pan Am topic. Does anybody have anything else? Or if not, we'll just kind of skip through these slides.
Now, Pan Am is going to be on New England Central Rail. Is that I'm trying to get this figured out.
Yeah, so right now, Pan Am Southern, they run from White River Junction down to East Deerfield, Massachusetts on the Connecticut River line. Okay. And that's, they have those trackage rights on the New England Central Railroad, okay? And they use those rights to connect with us at Bellows Falls. And they also connect with us directly on on their main line at Hoosick Junction. So both of those interchanges, Hoosick Junction and Bellows Falls, are what will be operated by the B&E. They'll still be Pan Am Southern, but be operated by the B&E. So as part of this transaction, and one of the things we worked out over discussions this last year is Vermont Rail System will have the ability to run our own trains with our own crews from Bellows Falls to White River Junction, which will connect the Washington County Railroad with the rest of the VRS network. And that was one of the key things that came out of these discussions. In addition to that, we'll have the ability, if needed, to go down to East Deerfield and get traffic if the need arises. So those are two key things we put in place, but
Okay.
so does that help answer that question?
When you get back to Vermont Rail, I'd like to hear exactly what Vermont Rail does move. I know they move a number of products, but I think it'd be interesting for the committee to find out exactly what merchandise or products they move.
Sure. So I think some of the key commodities we handle are certainly heating products, right? Propane is a very important one in the winter. Obviously, Amia in Florence is a big customer of the railroad. That's a lot of limestone-based products. Slurry and dry product is a key commodity. We also, the salt in the winter is another key commodity. A lot of salt that's used on our roads comes in via the Vermont Rail System. So those are three of the key ones that we're moving. We're getting more and more into the aggregates as well. We've always handled some ballast stone, both for VRS and outside of VRS. And, I think it was mentioned the businesses that have been growing in the Barre area and have been interchanged to New England Central and Montpelier. For years, the Washington County Railroad, the Montpelier to Barre up to Graniteville, had been pretty sporadic, very light car movements. And that's changed in the last 3-4 years. Northeast Materials up in Websterville has really grown their portfolio business. They're doing a tremendous amount of business on the Great Lakes breakwater projects. They're starting to break into the New York City market as well. And this is all business we've been developing in partnership with the New England Central and working with CSX Transportation as well. And the last 3 years, we've had steady business off that line, upwards of 500 cars. And we put significant investments into the infrastructure. V-Trans worked with us to put a bypass in to get around 2 bridges that they were just extremely old, needed a tremendous amount of work, and it was more economical to put the old track back in from what's called the Barre Transfer at the junction of Route 2 and 302 out back into Montpelier. So we completed that project last year, used it all last season for that business, and that business continues to grow. So we're very excited about that and continue to work on new opportunities.
Okay, questions, anyone? Nope. Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. So as we're talking about freight and we're talking about the changes that are going to be happening in New England with the CSX Pan Am transaction, one of the things that's really becoming a very hot topic is 2886K on the Green Mountain Railroad. We have a project ongoing right now that's doing that on the southern end of the Vermont Railway. The Clarendon and Pittsford Railroad into Rutland from Whitehall and the Vermont Railway from Rutland up to Burlington are 286 capable or have an ongoing project to support 286. So the Green Mountain Railroad is another vital link. And I think Charles mentioned that they're now working on 286 south of Bellows Falls and will be there. So it's really put a focus on getting 286 on the Green Mountain Railroad. And we have, in order to do 286 at 10 mile an hour, there's one bridge. It's in this picture here. It's Bridge 145 in Cuttingsville. That's what's preventing us from doing 286 at 10 miles an hour to be able to at least handle this traffic. And, we have a scope of work out there to do some steel reinforcement and some bolt work on that bridge to at least get going so we can start handle this business as we work on longer term grant opportunities to handle the 286 traffic at more than 10 miles an hour. So that's something.
Excuse me, would you explain the 286? Because there's some folks listening about that. Yes, break that down for us, please.
Sure. So that's the heavier weight rail cars. You know, typically these lines are seeing the 263,000 pound cars. That's what we're handling on the Green Mountain Railroad today. The industry standard really has become 286,000 pound cars to be competitive. And that's really come to light, I would say, in the last.
That's what they carry. That's what they carry on some cars. That's the maximum they can carry, like trailers on the interstate or something.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So you're seeing that a lot of customers want to go to the 286, you know, that they can move more product, you know, for better rates. And the Green Mountain Railroad had handled a lot of this traffic at 263,000 pound cars. And with the change to 286, a lot of that traffic isn't going this way anymore. And there's a demand for that. So we're really trying to get it to the point that we can work with New England Central, work with other connecting railroads to bring 286,000 pound cars over the Green Mountain Railroad. And this one bridge is what we need to address to be able to do that at least at 10 miles an hour.
And what's the cost of reconstructing that bridge?
Well, there's various things we're looking at. I think to do some minor work, and Dan, I don't know if you want to jump in here. I mean, we've seen some estimates, you know, in the 400,000 area for this one bridge just to do enough to handle the cars at 10 mile an hour. It isn't what's needed to make the Green Mountain efficient for 286,000 pound cars, which you really need to be at 25 miles an hour. But we're trying to look at a short-term thing to at least be able to start moving this traffic.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my team's looking at it. I mean, Selden's number is really a Band-Aid fix. My team's looking at kind of a longer term fix that would, you know, at least get 25 miles an hour. I mean, our current estimate's over $1 million to get this bridge to where we think it can sustain 286 traffic for a substantial amount of time. So we're looking at it. It's not in our current budget year. I think that's probably why Selden's bringing it up, because it's not in our budget this year.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
And the reason that it's coming up now is just in the last several months, we've had a lot of inquiries about being able to move these cars. And when we go back to the Pan Am topic, you know, and the ability to go down to East Deerfield, we're seeing more and more 286 cars come into East Deerfield that Pan Am wants to hand off to us at Bellows Falls to go up to Rutland. So that's the other big reason why we're looking at it, is to make sure we can handle those cars on a regular basis, and that the ability to exercise those trackage rights, you know, south of Bellows Falls, we can do the 286 cars and get them onto the rest of the system out of Rutland.
Okay.
So, and so at this point, you know, I think another big thing, does anybody have any other questions on the 286 specifically as it pertains to the Green Mountain Railroad?
I don't see any. Go right ahead. Okay.
So another big thing while we're talking about 286 is there's a project going on. I think, Dan, we're in year 2 on that. It's a 5-year project to upgrade the bridges on the Bennington Rutland line so they can handle 286 at all speeds. You know, right now we are doing 286 there. It's 10 miles an hour. There's been Band-Aid repairs done on those bridges so we can do it, but it wasn't the long-term solution. So that work is going on right now. We have several bridges that will go through those upgrades this year. But one of the key things is after this project is done, you know, the line from Manchester to Rutland is still light 90-pound rail. And that's another big project we have on the radar, is to fully realize the benefits of this 286K project that's happening from Rutland down to Bennington and Hoosick, is to upgrade that rail from Manchester to Rutland to 115-pound rail, you know, like similar to what was done on the north end of the Vermont Railway. So that's something we've been talking about, and will be a key thing to really take advantage of the benefits of the project going on down there right now.
that's, we have a scoping effort in this year's budget presentation for just to look at that project. So.
Okay.
So is
That's a
there any
beautiful
other
picture.
questions?
That's a nice picture.
Yeah. So any other questions on the freight topic at this point?
I don't see any. Do I hear any? No? I guess not. Go ahead.
Okay. So another thing going on here is I want to talk about our passenger stuff. You know, our regular scheduled fall tourist trains, the dinner trains, they've been on hold since the start of COVID. We're pretty optimistic that we're going to be able to pick some of those up. I'm hoping the dinner train out of Burlington again this summer. But what we have had going on still is the American Association of Private Railcar Owners, referred to APCO. You hear that is the acronym. They've been coming to Vermont. They came to Vermont and had their annual convention here in 2018. They brought in 18 private cars from all over the United States. We put them right on the waterfront in Burlington. They had their convention at the Hilton. And they really like the location because they like Burlington. They like being within walking distance of everything. Of course, the yard in Burlington's right, Battery Street there is very easy for them. So they enjoy Vermont so much that they made it one of their annual trips to come back and visit the state. So the last 2 years, Amtrak has brought them into Rutland, and we've taken them over the entire system out of Rutland, down to Hoosick Junction, down to Bellows Falls, then up to Burlington. They spend a few days in Burlington, go out on the Ethan Allen. And they've done that multiple years in a row. And we're really excited. It's a great project. They're usually here for a week, and we're looking forward to having them come back this fall as well. So that's a picture of the train from this past year down on the B&R. Anybody has any questions on that?
No, I don't see any. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I think that, pretty much covers things from the key points I wanted to discuss and bring up for the committee. Does anybody have any additional questions or any topics you'd like to discuss as well?
Yes, Senator.
Sorry, Senator Kitchell, would you like to go first?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just commenting on that North Bennington station. What a gorgeous building. When we're looking at, some of the architecture that we have here. I don't know. Is that a statue of Senator Sears?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
I think a lot of restoration work was done on that station when they were looking at bringing Amtrak up to Manchester back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So they're really well taken care of. And, anytime we go down there with any passenger trains, they work with us. They open the building up, and they're always very enthusiastic about things.
Who owns the building?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure off the top of my head. I believe it's the town.
No, the state owns it, and we lease it to the town.
Oh, okay.
Imagine they built those buildings years ago, how beautiful they were, huh? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, Selden, in the last, right before you spoke, we had Chittenden Solid Waste District in, and they were talking about how they were sending a lot of very heavy glass aggregate from Burlington, Vermont, or Williston, Vermont, right below the airport, all the way down to Massachusetts, because they need to get it there. And it's all in trucks on our roads right now. What strategies is the Vermont Rail Systems looking at to possibly get more heavy freight off of our roads and onto trains where it's more environmentally friendly? Also, I would guess economically efficient.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're doing that all the time, and that's where our transload facilities really come into play. We have the new one in Shelburne that's been in operation now since 2016, and some of the businesses that have been talked about with Casella, those are things that we absolutely are looking at in their ongoing projects right now. So Shelburne is a kilo transload facility. We have our facility at Riverside as well. There's always new business coming in and out of there. That's a great place where we're able to do a lot of truck to rail transfers. And we have another facility up in Barton. And all three of those facilities, we market very heavily to do exactly what you asked.
So you feel like you have the infrastructure in place so that if CSWD wanted to start shipping more in trains, they could do it? Or is there are some capital improvements that need to be made to make it more accessible for shipping aggregate, like what composite glass sand that they were talking about?
Yeah, so we certainly have the facilities where we can handle that. I think the investments would be the equipment needed to do the transload based on the type of material. You know, is there a certain type of conveyor needed, a certain railroad car type? And that's where we would work with them to come up with that. You know, what do you folks need to do? Who's going to make those investments? But a lot of times those are things we're able to work through. And either the customer has some existing equipment they can relocate, or you know, we work on some grant projects, or build it into the transportation costs. So there's multiple avenues to do that. The key is having the real estate with the rail access. And that's why anytime we have real estate along the rail corridor, we want to keep it rail controlled for exactly these reasons. So we can, when these needs arise, depending on where the customer is, we can utilize that. I mean, there's only so much real estate that's next to the railroad, much less real estate next to the railroad that has a siding or has the ability to have a siding. So it's very, very important for that reason.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, go ahead.
I don't have anything else to bring up. I mean, I certainly, we appreciate, you know, all the support of the state of Vermont, VTrans, Dan and his team, and certainly we'd like to get all of you folks back out a train here, hopefully sometime this year. And,
we're looking forward to it.
Somewhere.
They used to love those excursions. I took a few with our family. Excellent, a lot of fun. Yep, we're really positive towards rail in Vermont, and I think we all work together and try to make it successful for both passenger and freight. We know what an important role they play with the freight business. So, any other questions or comments?
I guess I have one more.
Yes, go right ahead, Senator Chittenden. Go ahead.
If nobody else is speaking this morning, I didn't want to use up all the time, but I would ask maybe, Selden, if you look at the industry for rail across the country, I always like the expression, tax what you don't like, subsidize what you do. Do you think we should look at taxing the use of our roadways for heavy aggregates so that it might make it more attractive for individuals to want to get those loads onto trains to make it more economically attractive, which has the environmental benefits? Are other states doing anything with regards to weight limits and trucks to get rail to be more attractive for them moving those heavy loads long distances?
That's a good question. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't know in any kind of detail what some other states are doing. I certainly know the weight limits on roads is key, right? When shippers look at rail versus truck, I mean, that's the economic they look at. And certainly the weights they can handle on the roads are a key factor on that, right? Another big key factor is, of course, the drivers. And I think we're seeing interest in rail at the moment because of the shortage of truck drivers and some of the border restrictions that are in place as well with COVID. So certainly that is a key factor that drives people to look more seriously at rail whenever the trucking becomes more difficult.
But also you have the issue about final destination between the rail yard or where you want to load and get to the product to the businesses. So you always have that issue also. Rail is not, we love it for long hauls, but you still got to put it on a truck and get it from point A to point B. So that's a factor.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I want to thank everybody this morning. Anybody else want to add anything before we close down? Well, thank everybody this morning. It was an excellent presentation, like always. Always very interested. And again, thank you for all showing up. And at this point, I think we'll end this discussion with the rail division.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
You.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, committee, I think we're going to take a break right now. Yes, I'm sorry. We'll be back at 10 of if we could. So we'll be a little ahead because we're trying to get Beta in this morning to speak to us. Is that something, Senator Chittenden, that we'd like to do this morning?
I don't want to use our time if we don't have anything specific with them. Are they planning to come in? I'd hate to bounce them if they're already planning, but.
No, I think, Jeannie, is that correct? Are you planning?
Excuse me, they are on the agenda, yes.
Okay, so let's reconvene here at, we'll see if we can get Wanda in. Let's try 5 of. 5 of, we'll get back together,
It's
okay?
not Commissioner Manoli, it's Director Fakos who'll be testifying.
Okay, all right, okay, so we'll try that at, then after that, we'll get Beta in, so why don't we reconvene at 5 of? Okay, thank you.